2021. Please let the minutes show that Commissioner Cry and Vice Mayor McBroom are excused this evening. They had something come up. So with that, Commissioners Valentine, Kane, and myself, we still have a quorum. So we will start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item this evening is to consider the minutes of the October 26th meeting and the November 4th agenda review meeting.
So move to approve.
I will second.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. All right, next we will consider a request to close Main Street on December 2nd from 4:30 to 7:30 for the Parade of Lights.
And we don't have too many additional details for you other than this is our normal route and this is a standard request, and staff would appreciate your consideration of approval.
Okay. I move that we approve after the Newton Parade of Lights.
I would second that.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next, Kelly will receive a request to use the 6th Street parking lot for the Winter Farmer and Art Market.
Yes, sir. This request was also in your agenda packet. Staff does not have any concerns about this and we would recommend approval.
The only question that I had
Yes, sir.
is in the application there was some ambiguity about weather-related sliding of those dates around.
Sure, and I would actually defer to Mr. Oding. I know he is here. He may be able to clarify his request for those weather-specific dates and contingencies.
I believe you're referring to the choice of December 11th or 18th, and that is a weather concern by the time we have a market on Small Business Saturday, which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 27th. 2 weeks could be a little soon on the 11th, but that's right in the middle between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
We just wanted the ability to make that coin toss, especially if the weather came in.
For just that 1 month.
Well,
Because it starts to get really ambiguous if we're like, well, maybe not this week, but then next week and all of that. So
the weather's always a factor, but on that one in particular, that there's a little bit of timing involved. And typically, if you're going to have a wet, jury day, it's going to happen in December as opposed to January, February.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So if the 11th looks good, you go ahead with the 11th.
And if
Yeah,
not, then we would move to
conceivably.
December, it looks like is what the proposal would be. Is that correct, sir?
Okay.
What is your expectation is what I want to get out in the open. Is your expectation to be able to move January either a week bit early or a week late, other than the date that's on your application? Or is this
all the
just
other-
a 1 day in December?
All the other dates are timed. January 15th is wild card weekend for the NFL. February 12th is the Saturday before Valentine's Day. March 12th is the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day. April the 9th is a full week before Easter. All of our crafters, they're building up stock for those holidays. They want to be able to go in before the events happen. So those are pretty much set.
Okay.
If we hit a stretch of bad weather, we may just have to cancel.
Okay. Just wanted some clarification. Sir?
So you know, March 27th is the 8-player, it's now called the 8-player football championship.
November 27th. The 8-man football team is at the rec. Right.
Yep.
Cool.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
called 8-player now.
8 man.
Because you have that on your schedule.
That's on
You have that on your,
November 27th, on the 10th.
Awesome. I just wanted to get some clarification on that. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
thank you.
Commissioners? Did you have anything else?
No, I don't. I move we approve the request for the Winter Farmer and Art Market.
I will second that.
Awesome. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Next item this evening is to receive the results of the November 2nd election.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. At your seat this evening is hot off the presses, literally, from our gracious friends at Harvey County, specifically Rick, the county clerk. And we just wanted to read into the record, there is no action necessary other than to receive and file this report, that of the 3 positions for city commission members, as you probably know, the 2 top vote getters get 4-year terms, and the 3rd person gets a 2-year term. And so Commissioner Kane won a 4-year term with 1,420 votes. Commissioner Cry won a 4-year term with 1,257 votes. Commissioner Valentine won an additional 2-year term with 1,012 votes. And we had 3 additional candidates, Mr. Gormley with 940 votes, Ms. Barrett Fox with 863 votes, and Mr. Eric Thompson with 346 votes. There were an additional 27 write-in votes for a total of 5,865 ballots. And again, just again for the record, we just wanted to make sure that we recorded it, and we would appreciate a motion for you to accept that from the county clerk.
Okay. I move that we accept the election results.
I would second that.
Thank you for the motion and the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next is to consider a request for proposals for Hangar W.
All right. I am on a roll tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And so, as you may recall, earlier in this calendar year, it seems like a long time ago now, during our pandemic-related meetings, the city and county commissions met, and the Hangar W located at the Newton City County Airport was built about 5 or 6 years ago. It was bonded through the Harvey County Public Building Commission, the PBC. So the city has a PBC that manages most of our athletic facilities. This is not that group. This is the Harvey County PBC. They bonded the building of Hangar W. It was originally built as a community hangar, and then it went into basically private rentership for a number of years. And then after that particular renter left the county airport, the city county airport, it has been leased off and on by the current tenant who is in there. And they have asked to purchase the hangar. And because of how it was bonded through the county's PBC, there were a number of steps we had to take. There were several public notification requirements in the county's paper of record. We had to publish, I believe, 3 weeks in a row, a notice of intent to sell. And then we issued an RFP. And this RFP that is included in your packet on behalf of Brian Palmer, who is our aviation director at the airport. This is the actual RFP that we are going to issue to the public, and then we will take sealed bids for the purchase of the building. The county commission, again, your joint property owners, heard this proposal this morning, and my understanding is they approved the RFP as presented. We would ask that you would do the same, and myself and legal counsel would stand for any questions you might have. But it would be great to have this back in private ownership, which means it's back on the tax rolls. And we will see whatever the bids are, we will see what the difference is between what is left and owed on the bonds through the county's PBC. And again, anything that is left above and beyond will be shared costs between the city and the county.
Could you share with the public who the tenant is out there?
Is that right, sir? It's currently Avcon is who is leasing the property, and they've been a long-term, very steady tenant for us. They've been great partners.
Thank you, Kelly.
I move that we accept the request for proposals for Hangar W.
I will second.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll consider options for the use of ARPA funding. Donna.
Well, we've talked about this several times. I'm back again. We were kind of waiting to see what the final guidelines might be and the reporting requirements, which they have pushed on to April. So we don't know when those are, the final guidelines are going to be published. As you recall, in July, the city of Newton received the first of 2 tranches in the amount of $1,430,669. In October, we received another $8,511 of unallocated funds from cities who chose not to participate in the ARPA funding. The reason that some of these cities chose not to participate is due to the massive amount of requirements and stipulations that are tied to these funds. And some of them are just too small to handle federal grants. There's 5 different eligible uses. The first one is the reduction in revenue, which is, there's a calculation you have to do to figure your loss of revenue, whether you can take any of this amount. There's providing assistance to households, small businesses and nonprofits, and also to aid the industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. You can provide premium pay to eligible workers who are performing essential work. You can provide direct cash transfers to households to alleviate impacts of COVID-19. You can make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. From the very beginning, the National League of Cities lobbied for this act to pass, and they recommended the best use for smaller cities, NEUs, which is under 50,000 population, would take it as a loss of revenue to make yourself whole, to ensure that fiscal austerity measures do not hamper the broader economic recovery. Some of the other uses also had, were predicated on like qualified census tracts and area median gross incomes and stuff like that. And a lot of that does not apply to us. We do not have any qualified census tracts in Harvey County. There's only 2 in Wichita. So those are real hard to carry forward. You have to have negative economic impacts, and you have to be able to show that you're not duplicating services. It's on and on. We've talked about this, I think, quite a bit. So what staff is recommending is that for this first tranche, we take the loss of revenue category, and we pay for fire and EMS wages from March 7th to October 2nd, 2021, this year. And then the money that we save by reimbursing ourselves for these wages can be used for whatever use that we can spend out of the general fund. And I used 2 calculators, one from the National League of Cities, another from the League of Kansas Municipalities, and they both come in higher than the money we've received.
Okay. And this is the safest way to not have to worry about the complex auditing and the qualified census tracts and
the verification of
verification.
duplication of services. And
because if it, should any of that happen, we would be responsible for paying that back.
in the guidelines, there's, in there, we can use up to 10% of our funds for consultants to handle this. And most of the larger cities are using consultants to handle this for them.
Oh, wow.
I know Johnson County just hired, it was in the news, hired a consultant to handle all the, but they were getting like 23 million or something like that. So they need a little help, for sure. But we don't have the staff or the time without hiring someone to do that. And a lot of it, we just do not qualify for.
Right.
I know we wanted to give some up to the Recreation Commission to help them, because they have had no help whatsoever during COVID, because they always fall through the cracks. And anything we do for them has to be in a qualified census tract. We don't have any, so there's no way we can help them.
And even if they were in a qualified census tract, this is one of those details that, you know, the devil's in the details, so to speak, especially in something like this. We could only pay for infrastructure, and it had to be outside recreational activities in the qualified census tract. So it's like we can't reimburse them for lost revenue for people not being able to come to the rec center when they had to close down, or, you know, because they had to have a certain number of people, a limited number of folks in the building. So we figured the safest thing to do for the community was for us to claim it as lost revenue, which we can definitely qualify for, and then utilize that to pay for one of the very clear-cut allowable expenses is first responder and wages and those kinds of things. And so that is something that is very easy for us to show in one lump sum, and therefore anything we reimburse the general fund for in lieu of those expenses. General fund is exactly what it sounds like, for the benefit of the public. We can utilize those funds for different projects, whether it is infrastructure or those kinds of things, but we want to be very careful and clear that that's not ARPA money being spent on that. That is money from the general fund being spent on whatever those projects become. We want to be very clear and careful so that we are not responsible for repaying misspent funds.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah, and it probably still doesn't cover, I mean, even up to some of the losses, because I know you
No,
mentioned
yeah.
one time that there's the increase in materials. I mean, it might help, but,
Sure.
and it can't be used to pay down debt,
Correct.
Right,
so.
or pension funds. I mean, there's some things you can't do with it. We're hoping they will come up with the final guidelines, because we are still under the interim rule, and things can change.
So when you say final guidelines, are we actioning on the first tranche, or are we just still discussing because the final guidelines aren't out
We're
yet?
actioning on the first.
We're actioning on the first, and the final guidelines
And we'll have this
would be for the
exact same
second.
amount next year, and hopefully we can do something.
Yeah. The second tranche won't come till June or July, so
Right.
we are very hopeful that we have final guidelines by then. So
Well, they're probably going to watch how the first one's being done.
Right.
I would not be surprised if you're correct, Commissioner.
There's about 47% of NEUs around the country are using the loss of revenue option.
And remember, an NEU is any community with 50,000 population or less.
Right.
So what I need from you, if you are in agreement, is a motion to pay $1,439,180 toward the fire EMS wages for 2021.
I move that we do that.
I was wondering if you were going to read that back or not.
I will second that and move that we do that.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
It's very quiet at
It
this
is
end of
very
the bench
quiet on
tonight.
this
Did you
end
notice
today.
that? I should have spread you guys out a little more.
Thank you, Donna, for all the work that you've done
Yeah.
on that.
You're welcome.
Next this evening, we will consider an ordinance amending Chapter 27, Article 2 of the City Code.
I can cover this, Mayor. Last couple meetings, we've talked about the noise ordinance, as you
17.
recall, a couple meetings ago. Citizen forum, we had a question about the city's noise ordinance, and we discussed between staff and the commission, specifically about the provision that controls in residential areas, which is between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., that you can't have sound that essentially goes beyond the property line. And I think the city commission had some compassion that there was not regulations that would cover the other hours of the day, as well as other sources of noise pollution. So we've kind of had some back and forth on this ordinance. And the two most significant changes that you'll see that are outlined in the memo and in the ordinance, in terms of that residential provision between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., we actually expanded it to go to 50 feet beyond the residential boundary. We thought that that was a pretty practical metric in terms of what should be considered an offense when our officers are out there. Then number two, we added a 24/7 provision that is not necessarily limited to residential areas, and it essentially uses the reasonable sensibility standard. The language was modeled off of Wichita. I believe we have some amendments to it. I think the commission was open to it. But essentially, it talks about excessive, unnecessary, unusual noise. However, it's got a number of exceptions that are built in. Obviously, activities reasonably related to the conduct of a business, which is zoned and otherwise lawful, as well as normal and customary noises produced by machinery or equipment that is be used on public or private property in essentially exigent emergency circumstances. So we tried to cover the exceptions that would apply. We also talked about the standard of going to the decibel approach, but we thought that this would work for our community. Again, the residential area provision stays in place on those hours. You would obviously have, legislative authority to expand those, but I think we've talked about those hours kind of working as is. But by providing the 50-foot boundary, I think that gives law enforcement a tool. The second one, again, it would apply 24 hours a day, gives pretty wide discretion in terms of not only the officer, but the prosecutor that would charge it out and a judge that would make a decision if it was eventually heard. The provisions pertaining to vehicle noises remains unchanged, and that's that same 50-foot metric. I would stand for any questions. There may be citizen comments on this as well. I don't know. But I would stand for questions from the public, from the bench. I've spoken with Chief on this, and I think we're on the same page on everything, too.
Thank you for pulling all this together and
Sure.
responding to the commission's questions and supporting our community and everything. Did you have any input, ma'am?
For the most part, I think we're gonna be okay with it. I think it's at least a place to get started. My only hesitation with it a little bit, when I talked with Chris, was just because we were so close to the source. From my south wall to the speakers, it really caused a lot of problem, or 35 feet.
Mhm.
So, we'll see how it goes. And
For
if
sure.
If we need to come back.
For
and
sure.
work on it again.
And her point is fair. Her concern is basically you're saying, hey, you're expanding this to 50 feet. I'm within 35 feet of my neighbor. I guess two points on this. One, the commission needs to be cognizant of creating, obviously, citywide regulations. We can't tailor it. However, to that specific concern, I would say that if the sound is carrying 35 feet through a building, it's likely to carry 50 feet unobstructed. So I think that 50-foot metric, again, I think law enforcement feels comfortable with it, and I think it's a reasonable standard. That being said, you don't have to take it. That's a staff recommendation. We can go back to the drawing board on it, of course.
I think that's a good point.
Well, it seems to me this is a good starting point. Let's give it a shot, and then let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, things can be amended, and we can
Always.
walk it in if
Yep.
we need to.
Absolutely.
What is the ordinance number?
Ordinance number is 5063-21.
I move to approve ordinance 5063-21.
I will second that.
That'll
We
be-
have,
Sorry.
sure.
That'll be effective after summary publication, which I think will occur probably Saturday.
Okay.
Awesome. Having a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Next this evening, we will consider an agreement with KDOT for the City Connecting Link Program 2023.
Yes, Commissioners, the City Connecting Link program through the state of Kansas has funds that are available to cities like us that have a state highway that is running through. So it's this connecting link between highway points. We have a project that is going to occur in 2022 that's going to start down on the south end of the city, do some improvements to the pavement around US 50 and 14th Street, and then some other intersections at, say, First Street, and then at 12th Street, and a little bit of work north of First Street as well, kind of up to the train tracks. But this is for funds that we applied for 2023, which would be the next year. And this agreement basically puts all of these things in place, and we have submitted to do a mill and overlay with some full depth patching on K15 north of 12th Street to basically the K&O tracks where we kind of are just the boundary line between us and North Newton. And the current estimated cost of the project is $436,000. $300,000 of that would be paid for by the CCLIP funds through the state of Kansas. This is a project, all of these are projects that we have in our capital improvement program. So any state funding that we can get to help complement our local dollars is, makes our project more viable for us financially. So I would ask that you would consider the agreement and approve us moving forward with the selection process for a design consultant, because we do have to put a set of plans together that meet state standards. And if you would approve that, we would roll on with it.
That was a lot of reading on that.
Yeah. Would it be safe to make a motion to approve what you just said? Or do you want me to?
No, I think that'd be fine.
I'm not sure.
No, if you would just move to approve the agreement with KDOT for the
Okay,
CCLIP
we'll do
funds.
that. Do that.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And
Nick?
your approval of that tells me that you want us to move forward with the consultant selection process.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
I cut it short, I apologize.
very good. Alrighty, next item this evening is to consider the tree trimming bid proposal for Area 5. Suzanne?
Yes, Commissioners, we had a similar discussion earlier in the year about the tree trimming project. If you recall, we started all this discussion in 2019 when we started talking about making changes to our neighborhoods and trying to do some improvements and looking at where we get the most complaints through our environmental control office. And I believe it was around 24%. I'm running from memory here. 24% of those cases were regarding tree trimming that needed to be done in the public right-of-way for trees that were on private property. And so you said, hey, let's look at this tree trimming program. And so our first year was in 2021. And what we're trying to do is tree trimming ahead of the maintenance area, remembering that our city is split into 7 different maintenance areas, or 6 different maintenance areas. We get there every 7th year. And the tree trimming, we do in advance because we have mill and overlay equipment, typically for the street maintenance, but also they're all of our sanitation vehicles. They are lifting and have hydraulics that lift parts of that truck up high that get hit by the limbs, all of that. And we need to keep the street trees trimmed so that we can get high profile vehicles down the street, and this is helping do that. We are utilizing funds from the sanitation budget to do that. We tweaked the specifications from those that we used this last year. We learned a few things, made a few changes, and the area that you see on the screen in white is the area, the portion of the city that we would be doing the tree trimming this year, kind of the west central portion of the city. And the red is Athletic Park. It is not included because our park staff will be doing that area. They're very particular. We have some really old trees in that area, and they want to make sure that it's done to their high standards. And so, and we have a lot more foot traffic through that area. So the area that we'd be doing the tree trimming is in white. We would put this project out to bid. We are expecting to have the bid opening on December 7th, and then we would bring back the bids to you for awarding of the bids at the meeting following that. Do you have any questions? The other piece to remember is if we're able to continue this program, which I'm really excited about because I think it helps keep complaints down, and oftentimes people don't realize that they're responsible to take care of the trees that are hanging in the public right-of-way that are on their property. But also when we have ice storms, it helps to make sure that all of that dead things that are on the trees are not going to just fall down on the lines, and it helps us so that we don't have as many power outages around the community. So there's just a lot of preventative maintenance for keeping these trees trimmed. So staff is very supportive of the program.
From the administration side, I will tell you, we get a lot of interesting discussions about tree limbs in the right-of-way especially. This program has been very popular and very well received. And so we're excited to continue to roll it out, assuming you all continue to support it and will allocate funding to it on an ongoing basis.
I think it's great. We talked about that back in 2018, I think, or 2019. So I'm glad that we're doing it.
I move that we consider the tree trimming bid proposal for Area 5 and set the bid date for December 7 at 11 a.m.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Donna, did we have everybody sign up? Awesome. Next, we'll have the Citizens Forum. Mr. Oding, did you have anything else?
Did I write the topic down?
Tennis.
That's right. I play tennis. I play with a regular group of players at Bethel College, typically on Tuesday and Thursday whenever we can, as long as we can get a quorum up. And it works pretty good. Sometimes, typically in the winter, we play in the afternoon, say 4 o'clock. In the summers, we play as early as 7 o'clock. It's a weather thing. And it works well we're all retirees, so we have flexible schedules. Sometimes when Bethel College has a meet or practice or something going on, we can go to Newton High or we can go to Athletic Park. There have been times when they've had meets, and we go to Newton High and they've got meets, so we go to Athletic Park anyway. And there's one halfway decent court at Athletic Park. One of the courts has a little area that needs patched. It's a trip hazard. The one court that we do play on, it's got a post holding the net up, and that post needs some work. And all of the chain link fence around the tennis courts at Athletic Park need work. It's like somebody put the fence up and walked away from it years ago. I don't know. I would never recommend to resurface those courts at the present, but they need a little work. It's really the only tennis court left in town if the two primary courts are busy. The good thing about playing tennis is it helps keep my doctor happy. Year and a half ago, when COVID shut down all of our schools, it was right at spring break here in Newton. And Bethel College was in the process of resurfacing their courts. They really keep those courts up nice. They get a lot of playing on them. I don't know where they get the money to do it as often as they do. But nonetheless, they were resurfacing the courts. And right at that time of spring break, the courts were essentially finished, but there was a concern of aging and curing on the new surface. So they actually put padlocks on the gates. They put out a sign that said no playing. And so we were, Newton High was our next option. Because it was spring break and because schools were shut down, we were at Bethel one day and the courts were being played on. There were a bunch of teenagers up there that actually jumped the fence to go play tennis. We got to Newton High in one of those circumstances, and those tennis courts were pretty busy too. And whether it was during COVID or otherwise, there are a lot of families that play. Yeah, it was especially prevalent during COVID initially. Mom or dad or both would be out there playing tennis with 1 or 2 kids. There was a lot of tennis players that continued to play tennis during COVID. There were other youth and students that were playing. There were a lot of adults. There's even we have a Newton tennis community on Facebook. New residents of town want to play some tennis, they just get on that Facebook page and find someone to play tennis with, even if they just hit balls back and forth. Another good thing about playing tennis, it was easy to keep physical distance. You could have all the courts full with 4 players each, and everybody's going to maintain social distance. So, because we have limited options if both those primary courts are busy, I took a look at all the tennis courts around town. Roosevelt, I would propose that some serious looks could be given to Roosevelt Park, the tennis courts, get some input from some tennis folks. It looks to me like the whole thing should be just ripped up and hauled off. It's not going to be played on. It's dangerous. It's a safety hazard. I don't know how it got like this, and I don't know how it continued to be like this. And again, the boundary fence around Roosevelt Park, it needs some work. All that chain link fence needs work. Roosevelt Park is presently our only tennis courts south of the main railroad tracks. That's a safety factor if kids are going to go out and play in a neighborhood tennis court. Athletic Park is a good place to have a tennis court. It's good walkable distance in a larger neighborhood. Roosevelt Park would also still be a good choice for tennis courts. Playing tennis it encourages a healthy exercise. It's a lifetime family sport. It's an inexpensive sport. Only it takes 2 players to get a game up. And I believe, and everybody I've talked to, properly maintained, upgraded tennis courts can benefit the greater Newton community at large, and more specifically, youth and tennis programs. One of the tennis coaches I got in touch with, and I'm going to quote him, I'm not going to identify him, I'm not sure I have his permission to do that, but he said, quote, "I believe our community could use a tennis uplift. While I'd love to see a new complex of courts at Centennial Park or added to the high school, or, and I like this one the best, another local gathering area. Refurbishing the 2 courts at Athletic Park would be a great start. Tennis is one of the few sports that can be enjoyed by players of all ages and abilities. There are no city courts truly worthy of recreational play." Of all the interested parties that I visited with, including 2 tennis coaches, a former tennis coach, also a city commissioner, Mayor Grant Scott, we all agree that Athletic Park needs work. The tennis courts at Athletic Park. I also visited with Brian Basque at the Newton Rec Commission, and he said if there were more courts, there may be an opportunity for Newton Rec Commission, either camps or tennis lessons. He also told me that they presently have youth tennis camps at Bethel College. The coach at Chisholm, Russ Clausen, he indicated that 8 to 15 players in each of the last couple years, seasons of both boys and girls tennis. And they go to Newton High for practice, and they wait for the high school players to get done. So they're typically having tennis from 5 to 6:30. If Newton High has meets, Chisholm cancels their practice. And if Chisholm has a meet, Newton High cancels their practice. So there's a little bit of priority there, a lot of give and take, some flexibility going on. I think that pretty well covers it. Again, we've got a solid tennis programs and community support in our community. Lots of players, and I believe there would be more players if more family-related playing and kids playing, should they have that opportunity to actually walk to a tennis court. I believe that in the future, and I know this is way down the road a few years, a new tennis courts, a couple of new tennis courts at Roosevelt might be a big plus in that neighborhood, especially for Chisholm Middle School. And if you do happen to build new tennis courts, I hope that we can put basketball goals on that first tennis court. That makes it even more usable for the youth in the area. In the meantime, our primary focus is to let's get something done with the tennis courts at Athletic Park. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you, sir. Suzanne, you said you
Yeah,
indicated.
sure. I appreciate Mr. Oding coming to speak about tennis courts. The thing that I would comment to you, commissioners, is many years ago, I don't know, 15 plus years ago, the city commission, the school district, Bethel College, everybody came together and had a long-range master plan for recreation. And what was birthed out of that was the
Public Building Commission and how we handle recreation facilities today. And at that time, the decision was made that the school district and Bethel College would take care of tennis courts, and that they would schedule the school district tennis functions on those facilities. Now, if that's changed, that's fine, but that's the decision that was made many years ago. And we do have it on our list of things to get estimates on this year is to have some work done to the courts at Athletic. Depending on how estimates fall and how that works with the budget will dictate what we're able to do there. The courts over at Roosevelt, there had been some discussion about pickleball, trying to work in pickleball. We had talked with the NRC about that. No decisions have been made. It's just been discussions thus far. And as you know, we do not have any funds in the budget right now for new courts anywhere. But the reason that hasn't hit any of our lists was because of the decision that was made many years ago that the school districts and Bethel College would be the ones that would handle the tennis courts. And so I'm sure that's why they are juggling the junior high and the high school tennis the way they are on those courts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, sir.
I forgot to mention, the coaches and Mr. Bascu that I visited with, they all had conflicts tonight or they'd have been here. I'd like to add a couple more items since I just happened to be here. I know you were on Zoom for 6, 8, 10 months or something. Eastbound on First Street, there's a school zone, and those flashing lights, they're obscured by the trees. And I presume that whether it's the landowners or whatever, the trees still need to be trimmed. Also, potentially consider a left turn lane at Chisholm eastbound on First. That can be a really busy place early in the morning and dismissal time.
Say that again, the last one?
Left turn lane eastbound on First at Chisholm. It's a matter of painting the street.
Awesome. You got that, Susan?
Yeah.
And if you would keep us informed of what your considerations might be in the future. Maybe those other interested parties would like to come down and visit and add their input.
Awesome. Thank you much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to tell you guys that I am so appreciative of you all and all the efforts that you have done with the noise ordinance. I really, really appreciate it. I think that it's going to be wonderful also for our community. I especially appreciate Vice Mayor McBroom. He's been so wonderful with communication. And also I'd like to acknowledge our city attorney, Chris Towle. He's been amazing with the research and also with the communication. And I want to let our whole community know we are so lucky to have you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the citizens forum. We'll go around the horn. Sir?
Well, I am very humbled and have much appreciation to all of you and the citizens of Newton for entrusting me to another term here on this bench, and I will do my very best, and I think we have absolutely the best team ever and the best citizens ever. And so if anybody wants to challenge it, I welcome that, but I don't think you can top it as far as this community and the people that live here and all of the staff and the 5 on the bench. So thank you all very much. That's it.
Well, I will say thank you as well for the opportunity to continue to serve the community for another 2 years. Very humbled by that, so I thank those who cast their vote for me to have that opportunity, and I too will always strive to do my very best. And thank you and appreciate all that are here, those that are watching. And I do want to give a shout out for our fire, EMS, PD, our first responders. I mean that every time. I'm so thankful you're here, and we're so grateful for your service in this community. And the staff, just appreciate the staff that we have that make this job up here easy, because we really don't do as much as you gave us credit for. It really all happens down here, and we end up getting to make those decisions. So they make it easy for us, and we're grateful for all of them, so thank you.
Anna?
No, thanks.
Suzanne?
No, sir.
Thank you. Chris?
Quick follow-up item, Citizens Forum, last meeting, 119 East 10th. City staff's looked into that. It remains a work in progress. I don't know if you guys have been by the property. I think what stands out is the open window on the second floor on the front facing. Jerry's reported that they have ordered it. It is on back order. I believe they were going to board it up. I don't know if they have yet. That was the report I had. I didn't go by today. But it is a work in progress. There have been 3 violations. All have been complied with the exception of that minimum housing on that upstairs window. Other windows have been replaced. In speaking with Jerry and looking at it, it looks like he's doing a good job in terms of communicating what needs to be done, giving them the appropriate time given supply chain and those things. So I would stand for other questions on that, but I think staff's handling it well. I did email the 3 citizens that had come to the meeting with that update last Friday, and we'll continue to give them another update later this week. Myself or Suzanne or Jerry will be in touch with them. So just wanted to at least touch base on that. It's not done, but it's in the works.
Thank you for that. Kelly?
Just yesterday, I had the pleasure of bringing Miss Rebecca Likiardopoulos, our admin service director, and Zach McCatton,
Yes,
our community development director, to make a presentation at the Kiwanis at the request of
And forgive
Commissioner
me for
Valentine.
mentioning that. They did a marvelous.
We had a blast. We
It
had a
was
really good
wonderful.
time. It was a bit of a rehash from what we had presented to you all a couple of weeks ago, just on the status of the City Commission's strategic plan, housing strategic plan, the community survey results, and how we have progressed on some of those issues. They asked incredible questions. We were so grateful for the opportunity, and we are. I've been teasing them that I'm going to take them on a road show with me, and we're gonna go out on the road, and they go, no, boss, no. So, but anyway, we had a really good time, and we were grateful for the invitation, and we were happy to do so with other groups. I know Zach's been out to a couple of groups, Rebecca's been to a couple of groups, so we've been kind of tag teaming intermittently. But if anyone is interested, we'd be happy to kind of do that, especially towards the end of the year or first of the year when we can talk about like the accomplishments of 2021, especially during the unique pandemic year it has been. So we are grateful for that opportunity, and if anybody else wants to come, have us come and talk, we are happy to anytime.
Because people don't get to hear, I mean, I don't think people hear a lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
And they talk, and others will talk. And so what you did was, and those folks were very impressed. And they were glad to know some of those things. They were just glad to be made aware.
It's like we said when we made that presentation to you all, it's like we're in the daily grind and we do those things and we check the box and say, awesome, we did it, move on, next thing. And sometimes we have to stop and look at all the amazing things we've done and just go, look at us, way to go. You know, this community is doing amazing things and we need to celebrate that and appreciate that.
Amen. That's good.
So we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. Well, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Sir?
I have a quick question for Suzanne.
Uh-oh.
Did they, I'm just assuming that the repair was made, everything is taken care of in the law enforcement center and the basement there and then hallway?
It is a very, very long story. And there was not a repair to be made, but there were items to be taken out of the sewer that had been flushed down the toilet.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And so that, no, not. No.
Thank you for clarifying.
Not by PD or sheriff or anyone like
Again,
that. So.
nobody implied that. So, yeah, the issue is resolved. There is going to have to be some carpet replacement, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else?
Oh.
Never a dull moment.
I might say, because you may all be going through this area and wondering, the Wheat Ridge project, Wheat Ridge and Paddington down on South Kansas, that project, we had hoped we'd be done before Thanksgiving, but I don't think that's going to occur. We've just had a little bit of wet weather that's kind of impacted some things. So we're looking at probably, in the first December area before they're finished through there. But remember, that will put a signal at that location, and all of the concrete work is getting done. There's some work being done there just on Wheat Ridge on the east side as well, and signals will be in. There'll be ditch grading that will be done. I know you've had citizens ask you about that. Ditch grading that'll be done along the east side of Kansas as well. So there's a lot of pieces left, but it's starting to finish up.
It's been interesting to watch
It is.
every day
Really
out the
neat.
window.
Anything else?
Nope.